Welcome to a new episode of Cheaters Always Cheat. Like, subscribe, and share to stay connected.
Lately, I find myself seeking solace in my father's secluded fishing cabin, a remote haven where I am trying to gather my thoughts and plan my next steps. My emotions are a tangled mess, and I feel utterly shattered and worthless. The anger coursing through me is fueled by a deep-seated rage, a fury that seems to have no outlet. It feels as though my entire life has unraveled, spiraling down the drain, leaving me with a profound sense of hopelessness. There isn't a single person I can confide in. The one individual I trusted implicitly has betrayed me, deceiving me about everything I held dear. At this moment, I am grappling with fear concerning 3 individuals, one of whom is myself. If the police aren't actively searching for me right now, I count myself as fortunate. But if they are, I will deal with that when there is no other option left. My profession is in construction, specifically in the demolition sector. Our team frequently travels for work, and I have been away for 10 of the 14 days scheduled. Rain, which makes demolishing wet structures particularly challenging, had halted our progress. With the weather forecast looking unfavorable, I decided to fly back home, waiting for conditions to improve. The flight I took didn't land until midnight. Eager to surprise my wife, I chose not to inform her of my return. After a 45-minute drive from the airport to our home, I was filled with anticipation. 8 years ago, my wife discovered a beautiful piece of land through her real estate job. It was far from other houses, a perfect spot for us. 2 years later, I completed the construction of our dream house. We had been incredibly happy there ever since. Our home featured a spacious 4-car garage, and seeing any cars parked out front was unusual. The sight of an unfamiliar black SUV parked there filled me with dread. Instinctively, I knew something was wrong. Up until that moment, I hadn't sensed any issues in our marriage. We had never argued seriously, and our intimate life was satisfying and frequent. Yet, seeing that SUV, a foreboding feeling crept over me. If the car belonged to a visiting relative, she would have told me. I clung to a faint hope that it might be a female coworker who had too much to drink and needed to crash for the night. But deep down, I knew this scenario was highly unlikely. I spent at least 15 minutes outside the house, debating my next move. Eventually, I parked my car so close to the SUV that there were only about 6 inches between my driver's side and the SUV. This positioning ensured that whoever owned the SUV couldn't leave without my permission or without breaking a window, as it was also next to a retaining wall. I turned off my car and entered the house through the back door from the deck. Having a concealed carry permit for a .45, I had strapped on my holster before leaving the airport. I wasn't worried for my life, but I was concerned about losing control of my emotions and potentially harming someone else. Inside the house, everything was eerily silent. Initially, it seemed like no one was home. However, a meal set for 2 on the table and a sink filled with dishes told a different story. I walked calmly down the hallway to our bedroom, my heart pounding. Slowly, I turned the doorknob and gently pushed the door open. The room was enveloped in darkness. I made my way to the bathroom and switched on the light. When I turned back, I saw my wife and an unfamiliar man, both unclothed, lying on our bed. The scene was devastating. It felt like a crushing weight had been placed on my chest. Tears welled up in my eyes, but I knew crying wouldn't change the reality in front of me. I took out my phone and started recording the scene, moving around the bed to capture everything. The realization that my marriage was over hit me hard. Despite my unwavering faithfulness, I knew that our property would be divided equally, and the house I built with my own hands would be sold in the divorce settlement. The emotional pain of betrayal was more intense than I could have ever imagined. Facing the impending financial loss was almost more than I could bear, as it seemed incredibly unjust. However, I was resolute in my decision. I was done with her and had no intention of ever touching her again. The sight of them together disgusted me, but it was my wife's actions that repulsed me the most. In just 15 minutes, she had transformed in my eyes from a loving, devoted spouse to someone I couldn't recognize. Neither of them stirred, and I was fairly certain they were both passed out from alcohol. With the house set to be sold, I suddenly found myself indifferent to any damage that might occur to the home I had painstakingly built. I retrieved my .45 and stared at them both, betraying me in my own bed. For a fleeting moment, I considered shooting her, knowing the bullets would likely pass through her and hit him too. However, I quickly dismissed that thought, realizing they weren't worth risking my freedom and life for. Despite the intense pain I was feeling, I understood that I still had a life to live beyond this. So, I pulled back the hammer of my gun, aimed at the ceiling, and fired off 2 rounds. The deafening noise jolted them awake instantly. She scrambled to push herself away from him and turn around, while he shoved her off him and onto the floor, his eyes locking with mine. His gaze was filled with fear, but it paled in comparison to the sheer terror in my wife's eyes. She tried to explain, saying it wasn't what it looked like, but I cut her off by firing a shot through the closet door. Her words died in her throat, and both of them fell silent, sitting on opposite sides of the bed with the sheet pulled up to their necks. I demanded to know who the man was, and he nervously introduced himself as Marcus. Turning to my wife, I asked her about their relationship, and she confessed that he was a fellow real estate business owner. When I inquired about the duration of their affair, she shockingly claimed it was their first and only encounter. In response, I fired 2 shots into the headboard between them. They both began to cry and beg me to stop. Marcus, surprisingly, admitted that the affair had been ongoing for 6 months. Although this revelation infuriated me, at least I finally had the truth. With tears streaming down her face, I asked my wife when she had stopped loving me. Through sobs, she insisted that she had never stopped loving me. Frustrated and disbelieving, I fired 2 rounds into the bathroom mirror, causing it to shatter and scatter glass across the counter and floor. I bluntly told her that she was deceitful and worthless, and I was through with her lies. Despite her obvious panic attack, I felt indifferent. I turned my attention back to Marcus, asking if he was married. He admitted that he was. I then asked if he had children who would miss him, and after a pause, he confessed he had 2 kids. I expressed my twisted gratitude for revealing my wife's true character before we had children together. However, I questioned him on whether an affair with a married woman was worth jeopardizing his family. He pleaded with me not to inform his wife, but I silenced him, noting that his wife had about a 50% chance of becoming a widow that night. For the next 15 minutes, I paced at the foot of the bed, gun in hand, trying to think through the situation. I realized that keeping them there could be construed as a hostage situation, and I knew I would eventually have to let them go. I told my wife to get up and fetch her car keys. She started to pick up her clothes from the floor, but I told her clothes were unnecessary and repeated my demand. She walked down the hallway and returned with her keys, handing them to me, tears streaming down her face. I removed the house key and told her she wouldn't need it anymore. Though she seemed ready to argue about the legality of this, a .45 has a way of ending such debates before they start. Next, I instructed Marcus to stand, take out his keys and wallet, and follow me. I led him outside to his car and punched him repeatedly in the face until his nose and mouth were bleeding. I moved my car to let him access his SUV, then handed him his keys and explained his options. He could either go home and confess everything to his wife, or I would contact her within 48 hours with the evidence of his infidelity that I had recorded. I gave him 40 seconds to leave my property, or I would involve the authorities. His state of undress seemed irrelevant as he scrambled into his car and sped away before I even reached the count of 25. Returning inside, I found my wife had put on a robe and was sitting at the kitchen table. I went to the bedroom, picked up her cell phone, and brought it to her in the kitchen. I asked if she wanted to call her parents or her sister to pick her up, but she declined. I even offered to call the police, but she refused. She probably thought we would have a conversation to clear the air, but I cut her off firmly, telling her that as far as I was concerned, our relationship was over forever. In the silence that followed, I could see the reality of my words sinking in. The relationship we had built over the years was now shattered, and there was no going back. The betrayal was too deep, the trust too broken. As she sat there, tears streaming down her face, I turned and walked away, knowing that this chapter of my life had come to a painful, irrevocable end. I told her that our home was no longer her place and that she needed to leave and drive anywhere but here. I explained that all the love I had for her was gone after what she did, and there wouldn't be another chance. She began apologizing, crying, and begging, but I silenced her by firing 2 shots into the double oven and 1 into the fridge. Finally, there was quiet. It's an advantage when your nearest neighbor is more than 2 miles away. At that moment, I let her know that I didn't care if I lived or died because her actions had completely shattered me. I told her that any love I had for her turned to hatred the instant I saw her with Marcus unclothed. If I had the power, I would have erased her from existence and my memory right then and there. I admitted that I was struggling to control my intense disgust towards her and suggested that it would be best for her to go to the garage, get in her car, and never return. With tears streaming down her face, she went to the garage, got into her car, and drove away. That was about 5 hours ago. Recognizing that I might have broken a law or two with my reaction, I didn't want to deal with the police if they showed up. I turned off everything, locked the doors, and left in my car. My dad owns a fishing cabin that he and his friends use fairly often. I drove there and used the hidden spare key to get inside. It was too early to call anyone when I arrived. I decided I needed a drink and have consumed about a quarter of my father's Balvenie scotch. Dad won't be happy about that until I explain what my wife did. Besides, I'm pretty sure it's the bottle I bought him for his birthday last month. I'm really unsure about what steps to take next. I've been going through posts here on Reddit and other subreddits in search of solutions. However, most of them are about people trying to figure out if their spouse is being unfaithful. In my case, I already know the truth. Well, I know enough of the truth that I want to know. The reasons for the infidelity seem empty. Some other posts suggest strategies to win back a cheating partner. I can't fathom why anyone would want to reconcile with a spouse who cheated. What I want is a divorce. I want it to go in my favor and to be done as quickly as possible. She shouldn't have the option to choose me again. I'm a human being, not some prize at a carnival. I want to remove her from my life and erase any memory of her. I never want to see or hear from her again. Can lawyers handle everything? I have the money to start the process. What I lack is the time, energy, and patience to deal with this nonsense. 8 frustrating years of marriage now seem like a waste. Those 8 years now feel like one big deception, especially after witnessing what I did. How can I trust anything she's ever told me? 8 years of my life seem squandered on a deceitful person. Part of me even wishes I had confronted them both and ended my own life. But that might just be the effect of the scotch I've been drinking. It's astonishing that I need to get tested for diseases just to be sure that this situation didn't give me anything. In fact, I realize I've wasted a decade on her when I think about it. Her actions have made my life feel invalid, and the time spent with her seems worthless. The only lesson I'm taking from this marriage is that honesty and loyalty seem to be things of the past. The only thing that seems truly everlasting in relationships now is herpes. That's something that truly lasts. Love and marriage appear to be built on falsehoods. I feel really, really low at the moment. Some people might already see me as a primitive person for responding with threats. I also know that some will criticize me for using one of my guns. I didn't shoot anyone, and the bed sheets were already dirty before I fired a shot. If bullet holes make the house sell for a bit less, I can accept that. I just can't handle this situation. Part of me wants to give up and end everything. The life I had is over, and even if I wanted to, it won't come back. People might say I avoided a difficult situation by not having kids with my wife and finding out she's unfaithful. But I don't feel that way now. I go from crying uncontrollably to intense anger that I've never experienced before. I have to confront this challenge or just end everything. Is it possible for me to get through this and rebuild my life? The thought of moving on seems almost impossible at the moment. I feel trapped in this nightmare, unable to wake up. Each moment is filled with anguish and rage, and I don't know how to find my way out. Every part of me feels broken, and I can't see a future where I am whole again. Right now, I'm leaning towards the second option. Perhaps if I faint and get some rest, things might not seem as bleak, though I doubt it. The weather forecast suggests that conditions will improve enough to resume work in a few days, so I'll need to catch a flight the day before. The current job site doesn't sit well with me for various reasons. A part of me contemplates staying after the job's completion, while another part ponders starting anew elsewhere, if I choose to start over at all. How does one go about choosing a lawyer? Is there a reliable online rating system for legal assistance, perhaps on Yelp or another platform? I'm not particularly fond of lawyers, they often rank among the least respected professions. Yet, now I must seek out the most assertive one available. Apologies for the lengthy text, pouring out my thoughts didn't provide the solace I sought. Unfortunately, this anguish won't dissipate anytime soon. I'm uncertain of my next steps. What's the purpose of any action? The person I once wholeheartedly devoted myself to is now a distant memory, and tonight revealed that they never truly existed. I wasn't flawless, but I was loyal. I never resorted to hurtful actions or raised my voice until tonight. I prided myself on being a good husband, relishing the commitment and fidelity of marriage. However, for every honorable man, there seems to be countless opportunists waiting to exploit him. I'm fed up with this life, disenchanted with my soon-to-be ex-wife, and disillusioned with relationships in general. My thoughts are a jumbled mess now. I reckon I'll turn in for the night. Maybe tomorrow will bring some semblance of peace. Update: I can't say if things could have turned out much worse for me, even if I deliberately tried to worsen them. Some may argue that my actions were excessive or went too far, a sentiment seemingly echoed by the legal system. This update might appease those who criticize my use of force, so let me address that first to provide some gratification amid this ordeal. I got arrested for making threats, committing a serious crime with a dangerous weapon, and a few lesser offenses, though the specifics hardly matter. A guilty verdict on these felonies, even without a prior criminal record, could potentially land me more than 25 years behind bars. Unbelievably, had I acted impulsively and shot Marcus and/or my wife in a fit of rage, I might be facing a shorter sentence. Strangely, Marcus opted to confess to the police rather than to his wife, garnering some sympathy from the authorities. My arrest was relatively smooth, devoid of resistance on my part. Looking back, it seems Marcus had me charged preemptively, possibly to gain leverage. A judge at my arraignment imposed restrictions, barring me from contacting Marcus or his family. As a result, I refrained from reaching out to his wife. Marcus's move may have served other ulterior motives, complicating matters further. I informed my workplace about the charges, triggering a state of panic. My job's specialized nature meant finding a replacement took 2 weeks. Now, I find myself job hunting amidst legal turmoil. This setback added layers of complexity to my quest for legal representation. Before even contemplating a divorce attorney, I must secure a defense attorney. Divorce papers arrived recently, signaling my wife's intent to strip me of everything. Yet, we haven't communicated since that fateful night. She's made attempts via calls and texts, but I've chosen not to engage. I harbor deep disdain for her. There's no going back. The prospect of moving on feels daunting, with no hope of reclaiming my former life. I've taken refuge with my parents, their unwavering support a comforting solace amidst this chaos. While the impending legal battle consumes everyone's attention, my loss and dashed dreams loom larger. Even as divorce proceedings commence, I hear my mother's silent sobs, a testament to the collateral damage inflicted. This situation has shattered not only my life but also my parents' peace. They shouldn't have to bear the burden of their son potentially facing incarceration. I've spent days cooped up in my childhood room, awaiting further misfortune. Suspicion gnaws at me, wondering if my wife sides with Marcus or aids the prosecution against me. Her silence speaks volumes. I remain oblivious to her intentions, but if her disdain matches mine, perhaps it's poetic justice. I wish I could share a more uplifting update, but this reality remains bleak. Somehow, amidst legal woes, thoughts stray to future romantic encounters, a notion I'm not ready to entertain. My lawyer's focus on winning my case offers a glimmer of hope amid the darkness. Yet, the specter of prison looms large. The shock of discovering my wife's infidelity still reverberates, a never-ending nightmare. What seemed coherent in my mind appears disjointed on paper. Nonetheless, given the circumstances, it's the best I can muster. My life is in shambles, all thanks to one act of betrayal. Update: I'll try to elucidate recent events, though legal jargon might elude me. A federal law mandates the disclosure of evidence and witnesses before a trial, or in this case, a hearing. My lawyer had valid reasons for withholding the video evidence of my wife and Marcus, considering it wasn't a trial but rather a hearing overseen by a judge. My lawyer had presented a USB drive in court as evidence, even though the actual video was recorded on a tablet. To make a long story short, Marcus seemed unaware of my proof or had conveniently forgotten about it. I distinctly recalled stashing my phone away after recording the incriminating footage before proceeding with my tasks, ensuring neither Marcus nor my wife caught sight of it. Marcus, perhaps swayed by his familial connections to the legal system and his status as a business owner, refused to testify, leading to the dismissal of charges. His reluctance stemmed from the fear of tarnishing his reputation if the video were made public during a trial associated with his name. It was a stroke of luck that saved me from a serious legal ordeal. My lawyer assured me of our chances with a jury, but avoiding charges altogether was a far better outcome. As I left the courtroom, my phone buzzed with missed calls and texts from an unknown number, likely my wife. Ignoring them, I couldn't shake the feeling that she had discovered the damning evidence. Whether she sought reconciliation or prepared for a confrontation, I remained steadfast in my silence. The moment I caught her in infidelity, she ceased to exist to me. If I wished to communicate with the absent, I'd sooner hold a séance than entertain dialogue with her. Immediately after the charges were dropped, I contacted my esteemed divorce attorney, knowing full well that the footage would be crucial in the impending divorce proceedings. Divorce court loomed ahead, necessitating caution in revealing the evidence, especially to Marcus's wife. Though rumors might spread, I doubted Marcus would divulge the entire truth to her. Meanwhile, my relieved parents received the news during their vacation. We had all braced ourselves for a trial, making the sudden halt to the criminal proceedings a pleasant surprise. Now, attention turned to the impending divorce. My lawyer had already received the filed documents from my estranged wife. Despite her presumptions of an easy separation while she resided in our home, I had no intentions of returning. Witnessing her betrayal had tainted the place beyond redemption. Additionally, the property required repairs and upgrades, rendering it undesirable to either of us. I insisted on its sale, denying her possession as she was the catalyst for our marital breakdown. Regarding employment, I aimed to reclaim my former job or seek new opportunities in the upcoming week. Reluctant to displace others in a niche field, I grappled with the unforeseen financial strain caused by legal proceedings. The void left by my absence at work was irreplaceable, yet I remained optimistic about my prospects. Returning to work would offer solace from the turmoil of divorce proceedings, providing a semblance of normalcy in tumultuous times. The past few months felt far from a vacation, regaining stability through employment became paramount. Reflecting on the ordeal, anger simmered beneath the surface, not merely at the wasted legal expenses, but at the deception concealed behind once trusted words. It was a bitter realization that I had been blindly devoted to someone I never truly knew. The urge to confront betrayal with violence lingered, yet I acknowledged the futility of such actions. Instead, I urged others to learn from my mistake, emphasizing the importance of honesty in relationships. Despite my soon-to-be ex-wife's attempts at communication, I remained resolute in my decision to sever ties. A fresh start beckoned, preferably away from reminders of her infidelity. While big cities held no appeal, small towns posed their own challenges. Yet, the prospect of rebuilding anew amidst the chaos of recent months held allure, albeit with the struggle of deciding on a suitable location. The absence of children spared us from further entanglements, offering a clean break to pursue separate paths. Grateful for this freedom, I looked ahead to a future untethered by the past, hopeful for a fresh beginning in a place untainted by memories of betrayal. My legal representative had submitted a USB drive as evidence in court, although the actual footage was recorded on a tablet. In brief, Marcus seemed unaware of my evidence or conveniently feigned forgetfulness. I distinctly recalled hiding my phone after recording the incriminating scenes, ensuring neither Marcus nor my spouse glimpsed it. Marcus, perhaps influenced by his familial ties to the legal system and his status as a business owner, declined to testify, resulting in the dismissal of charges. His reluctance stemmed from the fear of tarnishing his reputation if the video were exposed during a trial linked to his name. It was fortuitous that spared me from a serious legal ordeal. My attorney assured me of our prospects with a jury, but avoiding charges was a better outcome. As I exited the courtroom, my phone buzzed with missed calls and texts from an unknown number, presumably my wife's. Ignoring them, I couldn't shake the feeling that she had discovered the damning evidence. Whether she sought reconciliation or prepared for a confrontation, I remained resolute in my silence. The moment I uncovered her infidelity, she ceased to exist to me. If I wished to communicate with the absent, I'd sooner hold a séance than engage with her. Immediately after the charges were dropped, I contacted my esteemed divorce attorney, knowing full well that the footage would be pivotal in the impending divorce proceedings. Divorce court loomed ahead, necessitating caution in revealing the evidence, especially to Marcus's wife. Though rumors might spread, I doubted Marcus would disclose the entire truth to her. Meanwhile, my relieved parents received the news during their vacation. We had all braced ourselves for a trial, making the abrupt halt to the criminal proceedings a pleasant surprise. Now, attention turned to the impending divorce. My attorney had already received the filed documents from my estranged wife. Despite her presumptions of an easy separation while she resided in our home, I had no intentions of returning. Witnessing her betrayal had tainted the place beyond redemption. Additionally, the property required repairs and upgrades, rendering it undesirable to either of us. I insisted on its sale, denying her possession as she was the catalyst for our marital breakdown. Regarding employment, I aimed to reclaim my former job or seek new opportunities in the upcoming week. Reluctant to displace others in a niche field, I grappled with the unforeseen financial strain caused by legal proceedings. The void left by my absence at work was irreplaceable, yet I remained optimistic about my prospects. Returning to work would offer solace from the turmoil of divorce proceedings, providing a semblance of normalcy in tumultuous times. The past few months felt far from a vacation. Regaining stability through employment became paramount. Reflecting on the ordeal, anger simmered beneath the surface, not merely at the wasted legal expenses, but at the deception concealed behind once trusted words. It was a bitter realization that I had been blindly devoted to someone I never truly knew. The urge to confront betrayal with violence lingered, yet I acknowledged the futility of such actions. Instead, I urged others to learn from my mistake, emphasizing the importance of honesty in relationships. Despite my soon-to-be ex-wife's attempts at communication, I remained resolute in my decision to sever ties. A fresh start beckoned, preferably away from reminders of her infidelity. While big cities held no appeal, small towns posed their own challenges. Yet, the prospect of rebuilding anew amidst the chaos of recent months held allure, albeit with the struggle of deciding on a suitable location. The absence of children spared us from further entanglements, offering a clean break to pursue separate paths. Grateful for this freedom, I looked ahead to a future untethered by the past, hopeful for a fresh beginning in a place untainted by memories of betrayal. While I cherish the idea of having children someday, I'm thankful for not having any with a woman who could betray me in such a manner. Knowing that I can rebuild both my life and career provides a glimmer of hope amid the current despair. Even though life feels challenging right now, the realization that I possess freedom and opportunities bolsters my spirits. Moving forward, I aim to leave my soon-to-be ex-wife behind, considering her a significant mistake and a profound tragedy. Recognizing the need for therapy after enduring everything I have and the choices I made, I've scheduled an appointment for individual counseling in 2 weeks. While I anticipate criticism for my anger issues, I welcome it. I also seek guidance in piecing my life back together after everything fell apart. I'm appreciative of the guidance I've received thus far. The kind words and even the critical feedback have not gone unnoticed. Acknowledging that my actions were wrong, I am committed to self-improvement as I move forward. While I cannot change who I was in the past, I can strive to become better. Recently, I've spent several days contemplating how to even start explaining the current situation and where things stand. I felt it was necessary to provide an update to those who have offered valuable advice since my mistake. However, detailing all the events and drama that have unfolded would require an extensive amount of time. Our legal teams have initiated communication, with the other side representing my soon-to-be ex-wife repeatedly requesting that she and I engage in conversation. However, my response has consistently been no. Despite our attempts to initiate negotiations and propel the process forward, discussions around the house and property have been met with what my attorney perceived as odd or nervous behavior from their end. While I'm uncertain about the implications, they insisted on meeting face-to-face, asserting its importance for our individual or joint futures. Though my inclination was to decline, my attorney advised that eventually facing her in court would be inevitable and wise to meet. Aware of our evidence of infidelity and its contents, my attorney sought to understand their arguments and approach. Personally, I had no desire to see or hear from her. Unfortunately, they were not open to a group text, leading to an in-person meeting. Gathered in a conference room at my lawyer's office, I was already seated when my wife and her attorney entered. Though I intended to convey a mixture of hatred and strong disgust through my gaze, my plan was thwarted as she began crying and walked toward me. Instructing her to step back only intensified her tears. I distanced myself from her, ceasing her approach. I won't delve into the details, but I used the harshest language imaginable to express my disdain. Prior to that moment, she had never heard me raise my voice or utter a curse word at her. Yet, I unleashed all my pent-up emotions, leaving her attorney visibly surprised, although mine was somewhat prepared for it. Finally, my wife comprehended the depth of my feelings and the extent of my hatred towards her for her actions. Before our official meeting commenced, we required a 30-minute break to compose ourselves. When we reconvened, my wife expressed profound remorse for the unfolding events, acknowledging the unlikelihood of communication or response following my earlier outburst. Her conversation then shifted towards our jointly owned land and its potential value. Reportedly, a well-known company expressed interest in purchasing a substantial amount of land for construction purposes. However, securing this deal relied on persuading other landowners to sell as well. She emphasized the significant equation the company sought to acquire, given our land's strategic location near various amenities. She emphasized the need to discuss this. The ensuing disagreement over that statement alone extended for over an hour, a contentious back and forth that seemed unyielding. Eventually, we took a much-needed lunch break, during which I opted to dine alone for an hour, seeking solace in solitude to distance myself from the heated exchange. In a rather peculiar twist, she delivered what could be construed as good news, albeit shrouded within the negative context of our situation. The attorneys, intrigued by the potential land sale, recognized the need for transparency. Understanding that we would eventually learn about it, they disclosed the details. I retained the option to annul the entire deal at my discretion, without incurring any costs for Marcus. However, reneging on the agreement would deprive me of a substantial sum of money, potentially affecting my financial future. Upon my return to the meeting, my wife proceeded to unravel the genesis of it all. It began innocuously enough, with her participation in a parade of homes showcase. Marcus, familiar with her through mutual connections, initiated a conversation about our living situation. This casual exchange led to a discussion about an agent specializing in business and manufacturing sites, thus laying the groundwork for their collaborative venture. Given Marcus's local prominence, he could navigate land acquisitions more seamlessly, facilitating their joint endeavor. As the collaborative efforts between the two agents progressed, the potential for lucrative returns became apparent. However, the deal hinged on our involvement, given our land's strategic location. As Marcus and my wife delved deeper into negotiations, their professional engagement soon evolved into something more personal. Thus, unbeknownst to me, 6 months before my realization of our fractured marriage, it had already concluded in her mind. She claimed their actions were fueled by financial ambition, insisting it meant nothing beyond a superficial act. While my initial reaction veered towards an outburst of profanity, I managed to temper my anger. However, the revelation about their lack of protection incited a vehement response from me. I left the meeting consumed by a sense of utter uselessness, seeking refuge in alcohol for the first time since my post-wedding celebration at my father's cabin. Despite the potential financial windfall, the onerous terms attached to the agreement left me feeling even more despondent than my wife's betrayal. Crafted by 3 legal minds, the agreement imposed stringent conditions. Though the divorce proceedings were underway, the finalization awaited the resolution of the land sale. While I harbored no rush to embrace singlehood again, severing all ties with her became imperative. Yet, the thought of any lingering connection with her filled me with discomfort. Furthermore, the stipulation prohibiting contact with Marcus's wife underscored the complexities of our entangled lives. Despite my desire for closure, the ongoing grapple with her explanations and her nonchalant demeanor only exacerbated my anguish. Admittedly, while I would be away for extended periods, suspicions never arose, and our intimate life remained unchanged. However, the realization that our intimacy had been tainted by her betrayal left me grappling with a nauseating sense of betrayal. The prospect of reconciling her actions with the person I once knew proved insurmountable. Despite my steadfast loyalty over the years, the revelation of her infidelity shattered any semblance of trust. As I grappled with the aftermath, the prospect of a fresh start beckoned, albeit tinged with uncertainty. With a job reinstated and the possibility of expunging the charges looming, a semblance of normalcy seemed within reach. However, as I contemplated the path forward, the specter of our entangled past loomed large. Divorced yet tethered by shared assets, our journey towards closure would be protracted, with no end in sight. Yet, despite the upheaval, the prospect of forging ahead with newfound independence and a semblance of financial security offered a glimmer of hope amidst the chaos. She completely shattered me, and the injustice of it all weighs heavily. Merely being associated with her has tarnished my sense of self-worth, exposing painful truths I never wished to confront. It all traces back to the initial comment on my first post, highlighting the pervasive influence of individuals like my wife and Marcus, whose actions tarnish the reputation of others. It's disheartening how the actions of a few can cast a shadow over the potential for genuine connections between loyal individuals. It seems like a recurring theme, stories of good people entangled with those who bring chaos and heartache. Rebuilding trust feels like an insurmountable task, an emotional hurdle I can't fathom overcoming. No one deserves to endure the torment she inflicted upon me, and certainly not for her. It's infuriating to think that he may evade consequences, but perhaps karma will eventually catch up to him, just as it did with me. As for updates, the trajectory is clear, divorce is inevitable. Financial matters will be settled, and any semblance of contact with her will cease indefinitely. The closure I seek is within reach, even if it remains suspended in uncertainty. I'm grateful for the invaluable advice, the reminders to stay resilient, and the encouragement to seek legal counsel. To those who suggested otherwise, their comments hold no sway over my resolve. Soon, I'll fade away from this thread, focusing on my healing journey and extending the same wish for others grappling with the aftermath of infidelity. Regarding the land sale, progress seems promising, with a potential deal on the horizon. Despite her sporadic attempts at communication, I maintain my distance, unwilling to engage with someone who lacks respect for herself or others. The prospect of starting a family feels daunting in the wake of her betrayal. Yet, the desire for children remains, prompting consideration of alternative paths, such as surrogacy. Ensuring my future children are raised with strong morals and ethics is paramount, especially given the deficiencies I've witnessed in my ex-wife. In the end, her actions have illuminated the kind of life I never want for any child. Though the journey ahead may be fraught with challenges, I'm determined to build a future grounded in integrity and surrounded by those who embody the values I hold dear.
Don't forget to subscribe, like, and click on the little bell icon for notifications of new stories.